Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Risk to Revenue. Hello, Mr. Brian and Mr. Ryan. How are you on this glorious August afternoon? Oh my gosh, it's like 10 million degrees here in New Hampshire, and I cannot stand it. We have had the hottest summer here in New England. I can't take it anymore, but hello, hello, hello.
Well, Tim, I don't want to speak for Ryan, but good to have you back on. We did the Ryan and Brian show without you last time, and it was a little rough around the edges on the technical aspects of it. The content, I think, was good, but it's good to have you back to be the operator and have your finger on all the right controls here.
Oh, I'm sure you did fine. I watched the recording. It was great. I'm highly confident in your ability to click buttons without me.
All right, cool.
I will second that. We definitely missed you, Tim. So it's good to see you, have you back. Good to be here with you guys again on another episode.
Yeah. So we're talking cyber threats. Ooh, big scary thing. Like, given that intro, I'm all pumped up to talk about cyber threat. And can we just not get the elephant out of the way? Yes, we know AI, cyber threat, and defense strategies. Just don't use AI. But let's talk about some real world scenarios. Not that AI isn't a real world cyber threat. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that, right? I'm actually going to move me and move you because, I can click buttons appropriately and put the two of you up there. Let's just dive into some of these cyber threats and defense strategies. Brian, why don't you kick us off? First and foremost, because I forgot to do this, who are you? Why are you here? All that fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, just like Ryan, great to be here, back with the full team, full gang. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Blakely, Chief Risk Officer, Compliance Strategist, and I lead the Professional Services Division at Compliance Scorecard. My background spans over a few decades, helping organizations really align technology with policy, so security isn't just like a technical checkbox. It's more of a business enabler. I've led compliance and risk programs across industries with a focus on really making frameworks practical and scalable for MSPs and their clients. And today I'm looking forward, Tim, to diving into the real world challenges we see MSPs facing and how aligning security controls to policy and business priorities is the key, in my opinion, to staying ahead of the threats. So excited to get into it.
Awesome. Hey, Mr. Seymour, let's pull you up here instead, and let's make sure I have your little banner going on as well.
Yeah, hey guys, Ryan Seymour here, VP Consulting Education at ConnectSecure. I also lead our professional services team at ConnectSecure. My focus is really helping MSPs turn cybersecurity tools into services, into defensible programs, right? Not just run scans, not just have tools installed, but actually operationalize those tools. So I've been serving the MSP space for about 20 years now. So always happy to contribute some of the lessons learned along the way, whether that's good, bad, or ugly, or in between. But I like to think that I'm on the front edge of bleeding technology, working in vulnerability management. So we see a lot of the emerging threats that are on the horizon. So happy to be here talking about how we can minimize that risk and protect your revenue and maybe even earn some doing it, right? So glad to be here with you guys.
Suppose I ought to take a minute and say hello to, and look, MSP Thought Leadership. Yes, I'm here. Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard, here in my capacity of helping lead and bring us through this MSP Thought Leadership, where you can listen to these on your favorite podcast listener down the road after the fact. Again, Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard, where we help you, the MSP, have that risk conversation with your customer. Okay, enough of this whole plugging each other, all that fun stuff. Let's dive into it. Cyber threats. Maybe we should start by level setting. Like, how do we define a cyber threat? Is that like Terminator coming in and being Sarah and Connor and like, oh my God, cyber threat? So, Brian, how would you define a cyber threat?
I'd rather piggyback. Ryan, why don't you? You're in the threat and vulnerability area, you're probably best suited to kind of get us kicked off and level set on that definition.
Yeah. So let's get the easy stuff out of the way first, right? We're not talking about vulnerabilities here today. All right, we're going to switch it up. Vulnerabilities are obviously threats. We all know that. You don't have patches, you don't have the right software installed, that is a threat. Let's kind of shift the topic because I think there's bigger gaps out there that aren't always technical gaps. They're human and they're process based. Specifically, I'm thinking of social engineering threats. Specifically, I'm thinking of one we just saw here in June, right? There's a hacker group out there called Scattered Spider. I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but in June, they successfully impersonated some employees. They called the help desk. They got past MFA. That wasn't using tech or tools, right? They basically hacked humans. They hacked the help desk into letting some people in who they thought were customers and turned out not to be customers. So again, that is a threat that's emerging as well, right? Social engineering, one of those ones that we might not always be at top of mind because we're so focused on the tech and the tools. But our people too, right? Our people sometimes are our biggest threat. You can have zero trust networks. You can have the best firewalls on the market. You can have the best tools running in your environments. But when someone walks through the front door, unknowingly, untrained, sometimes those turn into the biggest threats of all. So I'd like to maybe start there, and I'll hand it over by saying, how do we defend against those types of threats? And I think there's something that comes to mind that the compliance scorecard team knows better than anybody. Repeatable, documented SOPs and policies, right, can help us avoid those pitfalls and train our people. So I'd like to start there with the topic.
Yeah. And Ryan, you made some excellent points there. When I take a look, or when I think about where MSPs are struggling the most right now, I think a big theme is in the technical blind spots becoming business risks, right? You talk about the people part of it, but I mean, just security operations centers are just bombarded with a ton of different things, right? Seeing a bunch of alert fatigue, right? Overworked people, too much noise coming in, and teams are drowning in that noise, right? From multiple tools that don't talk to each other. We're seeing fragmented tool stacks, right? And gaps in coverage create these easy entry points for attackers. Also seeing compliance gaps, just like you mentioned, Ryan, controls that, and Tim sees this too, controls that look really good on paper, but they aren't consistently enforced, right? These turn into threat vectors. So I think the problem isn't just missing technology, it's missing integration, right? A firewall here, an EDR there, a policy in a binder. None of it matters if it's not part of an enforced and monitored and auditable framework. That's why I push and try to educate. I know Tim's big on this too, educating MSPs to align their security tools to their policies and their reporting into kind of a single integrated framework. Because I think when you connect policy to technology and technology to enforcement, you're proven to clients and auditors and maybe regulators, if you're having a bad day, that your defenses are real, repeatable, and defensible. Thoughts?
Defensible.
Yeah, I have a really great example, and I'd like to, we try to make these sessions really product agnostic, but I am going to plug Compliance Scorecard just a wee bit and Connect Secure just a wee bit. And I hate to do this, but I do feel as though that this is an important part of the conversation, right? So one thing that kind of ties this all together is actually metrics, and metrics that matter, right? So Ryan, you talked a lot about the ability for bad actors, to do bad things. Brian, you talked about policies and procedures, and disjointed data and disjointed systems. So one thing that we're doing here at Compliance Scorecard, yes, have a policy, have a procedure, have a tool, and tie all of those components together, right? Let's take vulnerability management, for example. Have a policy that defines this is the things we're going to monitor and the key performance indicators, the metrics we are actually going to monitor, right? We're going to look at critical, high, medium, low, and the SLAs and the SLOs, right? The service level objectives we're going to monitor. Hey, criticals, we're going to monitor and deal with every X number of seconds, minutes, hours, whatever. We're going to use a tool like Connect Secure to look at those things and deal with them every X number of minutes, seconds, hours, whatever. Our policy says we're going to do this. Our procedure says the how. The tool is going to monitor those things. Compliance scorecard sets the metrics, governs the policies, and then the tool monitors that. 24/7, 365, blah, blah, blah. You set your baseline, the policy and procedures and the KPIs monitors that. And when the tool says, hey, you have a high, you said you were going to deal with it within an hour and you didn't, now you are out of the compliant KPI that you said you were going to meet. That is this GRC engineering of where the space is going. Now, that doesn't mean every tool is doing that, but that is where we are headed. Say what you do, define the metrics, have a tool to monitor it, and then monitor it ongoing. This continuous compliance monitoring is where GRC is headed. And tools like Connect Secure and Compliance Scorecard is setting that standard going forward. All right, enough of my soapbox. Cyber threats and defensive strategies. Have a policy that says what you're going to do. Have a tool to monitor it and monitor it. That is how you take a cyber threat and a defense strategy and monitor these things ongoing. All right, enough of my soapbox.
Good point. That's a good point. Yeah, and I would say, Tim, I just want to kind of keep it going off of what you're saying. So, do your vulnerability scans, right? Low cost, high impact, easy way to understand what's out there. But I think one of the things that I've seen, again, working in the vol management space with MSPs, I see a lot of partners that have some of that intact, right? They're at least aware to it. They understand what vulnerability management is, even if they're not doing it continuously like we want them to. Shout out to RFC on that FedRAMP document that's pushing continuous vulnerability management too. Exactly. Right? There's another example of it. It's like it's reaching the highest levels at every industry. So continuous scanning is important, but I think when we talk about the policies, the procedures, right, you have to start there. How do you even have a tool if you don't have a policy, right? Because now I just have a tool with, I like to call it best intentions or best effort. You don't actually have defensible, documented strategy. Keyword documented, defensible, right? It's got to be on a paper. And where I'm going with that is I think one of the ones that I see missed most often with partners, because we're talking about threats and defensibility, is a documented incident response plan. I mean, how many MSPs out there have those? You should ask yourself, do you have one? Have you practiced it? Have you rehearsed it? Do you know what it's going to be like when there's an actual incident happening? If you haven't gone through that, you're at a huge disadvantage. I mean, you don't want the first time to be when it's a real issue going on. You don't want it to be your real customer reporting a real incident, and now you're trying to scramble and make a policy. It's just not going to, it's a disaster. We see it too often too. So I would just stress the importance when we talk about emerging threats and defending against them. Yes, you need your tools. Yes, you need to scan, stay left the boom, be proactive, right? We all know that. But if you get to the right side of the boom and there is a breach, an incident, you need to have an incident response plan. You need to have that documented just as much as you need a vulnerability management program documented, just like you need your patch management program documented. You need to have your incident response documented. I think those all kind of work together. So I'll leave that with you guys, but that's one of the things I see missed all the time when we talk about policies, documents, and strategy.
That you make some really good points, Ryan. So, Brian, we've talked a lot about, documentation as a defense strategy against cyber threats. When you're talking to MSPs, and the small businesses that MSPs work with that you help the MSPs support, what are some of the ways, in explaining this, to the leadership teams there, beyond policies and procedures, what are some of the, the business outcomes and the business risks that you're helping them protecting that revenue beyond just policies and procedures? How do you even explain cyber threats to, the manufacturer that doesn't even understand the word cyber, let alone threats?
Yeah, good points. And unpacking a couple things that you just said recently too, is we as MSPs tend to overcomplicate things when it comes, especially when it gets to the engineer level, gets way into how the sausage is made. Tim, you brought up something that's near and dear to my heart. It's really when you think about policies and even as we're in the CMMC world, as you're documenting, your system security plan, try to keep it simple, right? And you said it, not, I'll reiterate it here because it's a great point, right? You write down what you do, say what you do, and then do what you say, and then prove that you can do it, right? If you keep it that simple, it connects all these pieces together, right? Say what you do what you say, and be able to prove it. And if you keep it simple like that, I think that's what helps kind of integrate the words on a page to the things that you do in practice to support the words on a page. So when you talk to, especially expressing things to leadership teams, senior leadership teams, or decision makers, stakeholders, whatever you want to call them, it's important to go in not with guns blazing and using a bunch of acronyms and jumping right to the vulnerabilities or the CVEs or CVSSs or whatever it is, or a laundry list of critical vulns. You want to translate those into things that they can understand, consume, digest, and resource. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to connect, and this is something that Ryan talks about a lot, but you want to be able to tag your assets so you know how critical are those to the business profitability, revenue streams, critical business functions. If they're a nonprofit, which we don't talk about a lot, what are the things that are critical to that nonprofit's mission, right? And be able to translate in a language they understand. And that's why it's important to get to know them. Yep. What, Ryan?
No, that was just my thing unmuting myself. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
Background noise.
Yeah, no worries. But it's really tagging what's critical to the business, and then being able to say, when you talk to that client, especially as an MSP, is you can say, you know what, we've got in the systems that drive 80% of your revenue, here's the critical things that we need to get fixed. And here's the budget I need to do those. Because they understand, if you come to me and you say 80% of my revenue is at risk, I'm going to have some clarifying questions, don't get me wrong, but you've automatically got my attention, because I can easily say, wow, if I'm a $10 million business, that means $8 million of my revenue is at stake. Help me understand how you got there. Help me understand what I need to do to fix that. Make it emotional, right, to some extent too, but be specific to something that your client can consume and understand, which is never technical jargon. It's never, critical vulnerability, this or that. You don't want to use those kinds of words. You want to take that, and then you want to express this into revenue preservation, being consistent with their contractual obligations and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was on the other, sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
No, see, to Brian's point, nicely said, keep it simple. And I just want to share one tidbit. I always think of again, I'm always thinking through the lens of vulnerabilities, because that's what we do here. But I like to step back and look at it too from the client side. And there's a real simple format I always think in. I think of it as a triangle relationship. Think of a triangle. right? You need three components to your vulnerabilities as an MSP. You have your vulnerability, that's one point. The second point is the asset that it's affecting, which you guys are really good at finding, right? You can tell me the firewall, the server, the switch, the access point, whatever. The third component is the business impact. That's what Brian's saying. MSPs, you have to tie the asset to the business. That's what's at threat. That's what's at risk. The function that that asset has to the business, not the firewall itself, not that data processing workstation itself, not that SCADA system on the manufacturing line that is responsible for processing all the printing. Tie it to their business. Don't talk about patches. Don't talk about vulnerabilities. I wouldn't even use that word. I would go right to the business language. Brian, you've done this masterfully over the years, talking about speaking the business language. I feel like you should patent that word. MSPs must do that. Speak the business language. Get out of the technical job. You're talking to a CISO. You're talking to the CTO. You're talking to a CIO or any CXO that has a technical background. Sure, maybe you can get into the weeds a touch. But again, I always challenge myself as a leader, as an executive, or just as a practitioner in this space. It's our job to interpret risk, not just tell you about patches and CVEs and stuff. Like, just like the doctor, when they talk to you, they don't tell you all these crazy medical terms when they speak to you about your diagnosis. They say, hey, you came in, you have a cough, you need to do XYZ to fix it. And you can say, yeah, my health is important to me and I want to get better. It's really that simple. So just every moment you MSPs have, try to challenge yourself to think through that triangle of vulnerabilities connected to an asset, but that asset is connected to a business function. And if you haven't determined what that is, then you've missed out on a portion of your job as an MSP. That is your job. You must identify your customers' assets, document them. I think we call that a BIA. I almost feel like I'm getting into that space. But sorry to go on, but Brian, you make that point, and man, it is that simple. And if you have that telemetry, that conversation is so much easier to have with the customer. I mean, when you speak to them about their business and, hey, we're protecting that manufacturing line that does 80% of the revenue around here, they know that you know what's going on in their business. And that's really what they want. They don't want another IT guy, another tool. I mean, we can all do that. So,
Brian, you're talking a lot about relatability, right? I was just talking to our good friend Brian Weiss yesterday on a similar webinar idea, and relatability is a real key aspect of IT folks talking to the small business. Brian, you say this all the time as well. I can think back, as little as even just a year ago. Right now, as IT professionals, you're in a new and exciting space because Copilot, GPT, Perplexity, all these little agents that can literally help you transform that conversation. It is so easy for you to go to a little GPT and be like, tell me how to talk to the customer in this industry without sounding like a geek.
Great.
For 40 years, people like Brian and myself had to think through, how the hell do I say this to my customer without sounding like an engineer? Now GPT can do that for you. And here's the thing. Obviously, you need to be able to bring your own twist and your own way of speaking, but you are such at an advantage now to be able to speak the customer's language, but do it with honest and integrity. Be able to say to them, like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm trying to use your language and your words, and I had a little help. And this is what I did with my good buddy Brian yesterday. Different Brian. When you're talking to your customer, trying to speak their language, just be right up front with them and be like, hey, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to use your words, but I don't want to use all the big geek talk. just make it relatable and talk about business outcomes and just be upfront and honest with them and be like, listen, I care about protecting your business just like you care about X, Y, and Z. Now, when you're talking about cyber threats and you're talking about defense strategies, GPT can help you come up with some of those relatable words that your customer might understand. When you're talking about, like Ryan said, policies and procedures, they might get that. When they're talking about ones and zeros and bytes and bits, there are probably relatable terms that GPTs could help you with, right? So as we're winding down here in the last 5 or 10 minutes, I always love our opportunity for Brian and Ryan to come up with like key takeaways. So when we're thinking about what is a cyber threat and what is a defense strategy against a particular emerging cyber threat, who wants to go first?
Sure. So I'll say my couple takeaways here is practice continuous scanning first and foremost. Get out of this scan when you can mentality. Stop scanning, less frequent and do it more frequent. I think that's one of the key things you can do to be defensible. And the other token is well-delivered SOPs, well-delivered policies are what make defense stick, right? At the end of the day, if you have a tool, you've got half of it, but if you don't have the policy to go with it and the evidence that you have intent and you had a way to prove what you were doing, like Brian and Tim pointed out, KPIs and being able to prove what you said you are going to do is almost just as important as doing it, right? So I would say my challenge to the MSPs here is look at your policies this month, pick one of them and make sure that your teams are educated on them, your customers are educated on them. Try to look at them through the lens of the customer and get out of the tech as much as possible. All right. That would be my takeaway for today.
Awesome. Mr. Blakely, do you have a key takeaway for the MSPs today?
Thanks, Tim. And one of the things before I get into that, that you shared is when you're talking to your client, especially if you want to be relatable, sometimes you get the most by, obviously, if you shut up and listen, they're going to give you keywords as they talk, and even subtle keywords, not even their own industry jargon. But if they call their clients customers, you use that when you talk to them. If they call a widget a gadget, you better call it a gadget when you're talking to them. Sometimes those subtle things build rapport and trust, and you are speaking their language. So it doesn't always have to be the big things that are specific to their industry, but the way they talk and using those same words back at them. But anyway, key takeaway, I think if there's one action step I'd leave you with, it's this. Audit your current controls and map them directly to a recognized framework. Not for the sake of a binder, but so you can prove really at any moment that your defenses are both operational, right? They work, and they're documented, right? Say what you do what you say. Because in security, defense without documentation isn't defensible. And when you can show that your security posture is like aligned, enforced, and evidenced, you're not just ready for like your next audit. You're prepared and ready for the next attack.
That's it. All right. Wow.
Well,
Okay.
Well, Tim, I've got something else that I if you don't mind, if I could take
Sure.
maybe 30 to 45 seconds here before I turn it over to you. But because Ryan mentioned they do pro services now, and he's leading that at the beginning of the conversation. That's what's near and dear to my heart. But before I wrap up, I just wanted to speak from the heart a second about why pro services even exist at Compliance Scorecard and Connect Secure. And I know Ryan would support me, but we're here to back MSPs, period. Our whole mission is to help MSPs grow your services, help you grow your services, deepen your client relationships, and open doors you might not have the time or bandwidth to open on your own. So we're not here to take your clients or steal your revenue. That's not who we are. It's not why we exist at all. And it's not why we built pro services. We see ourselves as part of your team, an extra set of hands, extra brain power, extra capabilities, so you can focus on doing what you do best. Everything we build, everything we deliver is about making you, the MSP, and the MSP community stronger. That's the why behind pro services. And I think Tim would agree that's what drives us every single day.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up. I know this has nothing to do with MSP thought leadership. It is interesting that you bring that up. Both Connect Secure and Compliance Scorecard, while we do have this professional services conversation, I will speak at least in behalf of Compliance Scorecard, as Brian has. First and foremost, being the hand in glove alongside the MSP community and professional services is who we are and what we want to do. Our scope of services around pro services is to work alongside you, to work for you and with you. You own the paper, you own the customer, period. We would never want your customer. Plain and simple. There is a caveat. I do have one enterprise customer. He's a friend of mine, lives down the street, defense contractor. Of course, I'm going to support my friend who's a defense contractor. I say that all the time. I had 13 years in the military. Of course, I'm going to support my friend who's a defense contractor that lives down the street from me. But I was an MSP. I had end customers. I'm all set with that. I have a heart to help the MSPs, to help them with the struggles that I learned through, and to support you as an MSP or an MSSP. I don't want your customers. What I want is to help you through the struggles that I learned through. I don't want your customers. I want to help you learn through that, help you grow your customer base. I've heard a couple of different little scuttlebutts here and there around that. I just wanted to make sure I'm addressing that, which has nothing to do with the MSP thought leadership stuff here, but it's come up in a couple of different conversations literally last night and this week. I just wanted to make sure I publicly addressed that here live on LinkedIn or whatever. But yes, Ryan, it'll probably come up over there at Connect Secure too. So just throwing that out here, like, yeah, we're here to work with you.
Agreed. Yeah. You guys said exactly kind of what I would just echo. The pro services team is built to be an extension of the MSP, right? We're representing the MSP. All of it's generally white labeled. We work on behalf of your team for you, right? We want you to grow your business, so you grow your business with us. When you win, we win. This is a very symbiotic relationship. So we have vested interest in, as a vendor, not only to just give you a tool and a scanner or a piece of software. Everyone can give you a tool, but we want to turn the tool into a service and show you how to do that. How to earn more money. And at the end of the day, when you're earning revenue, we're also reducing risk, man. So we get the double-edged sword. We get two benefits out of it. There's a lot more, but yeah, that was nicely said, guys. I think it's might as well just address it while we can. But yeah, the pro services team is meant to be an extension for the MSPs, for you guys that need some help rolling your sleeves up, right? We want to get in there and help you guys dismantle whatever's causing you not to have cybersecurity services and GRC ubiquitous with your business. Why is cybersecurity not ubiquitous, right? Why are we still doing this after all these years? I still can't believe that cybersecurity just isn't everywhere we turn by default. It feels like there's a movement, and that's what this is helping you guys defend there. So nicely said, the two of you guys. Thanks for the time, a little extra blurb there, but it's good. It's a good message to get out.
All right. Hey, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Looking forward to do the follow, do the Apple podcast, do the things. Hey, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Cheers.
Cheers.
Subscribe now.